Summer routines live or die by how easy they are. And honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Hi, everybody. This is Dawn Mitchell, and welcome to Dawn of Sports. I'm really excited about today. Unfortunately, Jim can't join us today. Oh, he's on a cruise, so he doesn't have the fun that we're going to have. Talking with Audra Martin of Bally Sports North. I'm so excited to have you on. I've been waiting for you to come on. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here too. I appreciate the introduction, although, I don't know if I'm more fun than a cruise or ever Jim is, but
I think you are.
We'll try.
I think he's missing out. I think Jim is missing out. So for those of you who don't know, Audra, you've been here a while now, but now you are the host, the pregame show, postgame show for not only the Wild, you do the Twins. You've had a crazy baseball season, and now you're kind of riding the downslope with the Wild. How has that been for you?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it because it was a crazy baseball season. It was a long season, as we all know, full of ups and downs. And that was a really weird transition because they lost on a Wednesday and Thursday was opening night for the Wild. And we were in a little bit of limbo because if the Twins did win that game and force Game 5 in Houston, I was going to go to Houston with the Twins and Katie Storm was going to have to jump in and fill in on opening night, and that's an hour-long pregame show. And she was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm like, you'll be fine. You got it. But so I think logistically, it maybe was a good thing for some people involved that, the Twins unfortunately lost that game. I was kind of bummed, but that was an interesting turnaround. It was like saying goodbyes and kind of putting your mind on the fact that baseball season's over and now home to start getting ready for pregame the next day. It was a really quick turnaround, but I wouldn't have it any other way. That's how the business is. It's from one right to the other.
You just have to flip a switch to a different sport, a different modality, right? And immediately.
Yeah, and hope that you don't say, hey, welcome back to Twins. I mean, Wildlife,
Yeah. So, you've been let's start with the Twins. Let's start with something so really awesome that people loved. I thankfully got to go to those wild card games. They were my off days. And I've never been as a fan, because no cheering in the press box or you're covering it. We had a special, but on those days I actually could go and didn't have to work. And it was electric.
Yeah, it was.
And you have been doused by so many Gatorade buckets along the way, but this year was different.
It was so fun. I was so proud of that group of guys. I mean, you've been around teams long enough and you can tell when there is a team that is really a cohesive group that really likes playing with playing as a team. They like being around each other, they like playing together, they like working together, all of it. And I feel like that team this year, they just really seem to have a good vibe about them, even when things weren't going great, right? Think back to the beginning of the season when there were a lot of inconsistencies throughout the team. You could just tell that they were a group that really liked being around each other, which is key. And then when things started turning around after the All-Star break, then it really started getting fun. And then you could see that energy and cohesiveness even more. And it was like, okay, we might be onto something here. And so I was really, really happy for them. It was great to see them finally break the streak and end the curse. I loved talking to Kyle Farmer at the end of the game when they clinched the division. And he said to the whole park, we're going to win a game. We're going to win that first game in 18 years, I promise. And I remember thinking, oh boy, that's a big promise. I hope you deliver. But I wasn't worried. I was pretty confident that they would.
Somebody said this to me and I go, that is so cool. And I can't remember if it was when we're in a press conference and someone just leaned over or if it was a former player, but I'm like, that's a spectacular way of looking at it. Someone said, most of these guys on this team have no part of this
at all.
Losing streak in the playoffs, right? They're no part of it. It doesn't really register. They know it's there. However, there was pressure on them because if they didn't win, then they became part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I said, oh my gosh, yes. Like, so the young guys had motivation there because I don't want to be part of that streak, right?
Yeah.
And could you feel that even in all that mojo going on?
For sure. And I thought it was great. You could tell that those guys, whether they had been here for 1 year or if they've been here, however many years, guys like Max Kepler and Jorge Polanco, right? Because they're the longest tenured guys at this point. It didn't matter. You could tell that they wanted to end that streak. And I think it's great for a player to have pride in that and want to give that to the fans and to the community, right? You don't want a player that's going to come in here and be like, whatever, I don't care about some streak. If we win, we win. We don't, you like to hear that they are aware that fans have been waiting and fans have been dying for this to happen. And so I thought it was great that so many of them spoke about it publicly and acknowledged that, yeah, we are using this as motivation. We shouldn't pretend like it's not the elephant in the room. Let's take it and use it as motivation. And I mean, you're right. You said electric. I mean, the crowds there, those games, it was awesome. It was just so cool seeing everybody so into it. The energy was unlike anything that I'd been around. And so to see them win that first wild card match in pretty dominating fashion, at least from a pitching and defensive perspective, it was just awesome. It was so cool to be a part of it. And I wish it could have gone on longer. I don't know if you're like me. I'm sitting there watching the World Series being like, man, I think the Twins could have beaten, right?
Yes, exactly.
Especially because they did do well against both of those teams during the regular season. But I think they're on the right track, and you never know what's going to happen next year. But that was really awesome.
Well, especially for the players that said, I've never tasted that kind of feel in this ballpark.
Yeah.
And it's not a diss on the fans here at the ballpark. It's I haven't been in this situation. So to feel that now I want it again.
Right. And that's what it was, just such a bummer the way that the Houston series went. That one game back at Target Field when Sonny was pitching and it was 4-0 after one half of an inning, that was tough because it did take so much of that energy and the electricity out of the building. I would have loved to see them have one of their comebacks and get it done. So that was tough. That was really tough, but you can't take away from what they did before that. And gave a lot of fans a lot of awesome memories, and those guys have a lot of great memories and stuff. So yeah, it was cool. And so, yeah, now I want to experience it again. Let's do it again. Right. And then some, let's go all the way. Right.
Yeah. Let's get those champagne.
I don't think I'm asking for too much. Right.
Which are always cool. Right. They haven't
fun.
had one in so long.
Yeah.
It was like just, everyone needed it.
Yeah. They are fun. The first time I experienced that was, the wild card berth was that 2017, right? When they went from 103 losses to then the wild card the next year. That was insanity. And that was cool because there were guys like Brian Dozier and Joe Mauer and stuff in there that were, getting to experience that. I mean, I know Joe's been there and stuff, but it was really cool to see that kind of a turnaround. But that was short-lived too. And then 19 and 20 and 20 was a COVID year, right? So that always just seems weird when you're talking about how many divisions they had won lately. You're like, oh wait, that's right. COVID year.
My timing is all off with COVID because as you're saying it, I'm like, yeah, well, I was in the locker room literally for it seemed like 3 hours straight. We did wall to wall.
Yeah.
But it's back in the dome.
Yeah.
Right. So you're in that locker room in the dome.
Yeah.
And so, you're waiting for, Joe Nathan to come out. And I'm like, what year is that? After a while, you like start dating yourself. Yeah. I'm like, my friend's son goes, it was like in the dome, Dawn. I'm like, yeah, it was a minute ago. I know. But
it is so different to do it at your home ballpark versus because 19 and 17 was what Cleveland and Detroit. So different to be able to experience it at home. I was really happy for the fans. It was cool seeing the guys running out and giving fans high fives and like Louis Varland. Like, did you see that video of Louis Varland throwing the Gatorade onto a fan?
Yes.
That was awesome.
That was the best.
The best. Yeah. That was a cool experience.
What I really liked about the guys this year, and even more so because you're around them all the time, is there's good guys. And people always want you to peel back the layer, right? And I don't want you to say who's your favorite, who's not your favorite, because people always ask that, and it's hard to say because you got to cover them all. But there are a lot of unique, good characters where Royce Lewis is getting water and refreshments for the people in the stands when it's like 90 degrees out. Just that they're down to earth. They treat you just as well. They're kind of like a sister, I'm sure, as they do their teammates.
Guys. Yep.
And people don't see that, right? They don't see that you're around them all the time, that you become part of their family.
Yeah, and that's what I really, really love about the Twins organization. Yes, looking back on the years, there have been some guys who have maybe been a bad seed. And unfortunately, it does kind of have a ripple effect. It does kind of bring down, I think, the energy and stuff in the clubhouse. But yeah, the last couple of years this is a really good group. And I feel bad for the beat writers when they had to vote for media good guy this year, because there was like 9
it could be Pablo.
Yes. I mean, literally, Carlos won it last year. Totally could have won it again. Kyle Farmer won it in Cincinnati. Right. He totally could have won it. Pablo was very deserving of it. Ryan Jeffers.
Yes.
Totally, like, anytime you need something, he's there ready to talk, holds himself accountable. I mean, I could literally go down the list of they're just a great group of guys, and that's the thing that's tough in this industry, right? You follow these teams, you kind of get invested. Yes, you're not supposed to be a fan, but you get invested, right? And you want them to do well. And then at the end of the year, you know that it's not going to be the same group next year,
right?
It's
never the same.
Yeah, that was hard after that last game going into the clubhouse. Sonny Gray was very emotional. Emilio Pagan was emotional because you could tell that they're all like, oh my gosh, I may not see these guys as teammates again. There's just so much uncertainty that has to be so hard for them. I mean, gosh, it's like hard for us as fans to be like, wait, I want you to come back. Imagine what it's like for them. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens next year and how they try and follow it up. Let's hope they do.
What was the hardest locker room you've had to, in terms of maybe dealing with the guys having emotions or for you?
I've actually been really, really lucky. I've talked about this with a lot of my colleagues and counterparts, whether it be in MLB or especially like back when I was in Tennessee and I was working in the NFL, because I really lucked out with the Titans too. I never really had any issues. And this, you can talk to, and it's not a female thing. You could be a male reporter too. And there is a different type. If you have bad seeds in that clubhouse or locker room, it makes your job really hard, right? And it kind of has a ripple effect, and it's contagious, right? So if you have a locker room that's just full of good attitudes and great guys, it makes our job that much easier. And I really mean this. Like, I really have had great fortune over the course of my career, whether it goes back to my first job with the Atlanta Thrashers, to the Titans and the Predators, and then here up in Minnesota. I really haven't had any bad experience. Every once in a while, you got to keep some of them in check, right?
Yes,
you have to kind of be like, no. I mean, I'll just put it out there. There's been a couple where I've had to be like, I don't date athletes. I don't hang out with athletes outside of work. Let's just squash that right now.
Right. And
that usually takes care of it. Every once in a while, I've had to really put my foot down, but I'm talking like 5 times in the course of my career. I would say in the last 10 years where you really have to.
Yeah, because it's how you carry yourself. And they'll try once. And then once you tell you, then like, okay, cool. Right?
Yeah.
You just have to do that. I think for me, the worst locker room, and it wasn't the guys at all, it was the NFC Championship game where the Vikings lost to the Saints. And usually there's like the 15-minute cool down period, then you go in, and it was like a half hour. And when I walked in, they're all still in their uniforms.
Yeah.
And they're all still at their lockers.
Yeah.
And they're all snot crying.
Oh, yeah.
Like heave crying.
Yeah.
And I felt like and everyone's like, you go first, right? So I'm walking in there first and I'm looking around. I'm like, the first time I felt like once they opened the doors for me to go in, I shouldn't be in here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like those are tough moments.
Yeah. Like this is like you could feel it.
Yeah.
Like Favre is on, I can see it to this day. It was on my left-hand side and he had his head down and just things are just dripping. He was still in his uniform, his legs all battered. Looked over to the right-hand side and you see the guys there. And then it wasn't until Percy Harvin was standing up and he was in the back. And he looked at me and I looked at him and then he just kind of nodded and I nodded. And then he looked at me and then he kind of went and he kind of like looked at my mic.
Yeah.
And then nodded. And I'm like, so I pointed at my mic, right? I'm like,
right.
You want me to come over? He goes, and he nodded. So I went over and that was the first foray into it. And he started talking and then all the other guys started talking. But I was like, wow, because people say that was hard to go. Their hearts were broken. I don't think the fans get to see that part, right?
Right.
This is after a half hour after the game is over, and and they know media's coming in, and they were all still in their uniforms.
Yeah.
So
that's hard. I mean, it was tough after the loss at Turkey Field, but again, great group of guys. They know that that's part of the job, right?
Yeah.
And they were happy to talk to the media, I think, because they were really proud of what they did this year, right? You know, I mean, of course there was disappointment, but you know, I don't know. It breaks your heart, but I had so much respect for how like willing all of them were to talk. You know, that can't be an easy thing. Everybody goes through disappointment in life, right? And nobody wants a camera and a microphone shoved in your face. At
The worst day of your life, right? Or you make a huge mistake at work. Can you imagine? Like, you know, if you're working for Prudential, you make a big mistake. There's a camera crew there going, so tell me about that $1 million mistake you just made in front of everybody.
Right? And here we are, Don. We're the ones that do it. We feel bad. We're like, hey, here's a camera and a mic in your face. Yeah. Yeah, it's part of the job. It's tough, you know, but that's why I always, and I've told Emilio Pagan this many times since he's been a Twin. He's one of the best that I've ever covered in terms of holding himself accountable and understanding that talking to us is part of the job. I'll never forget there was a game last year in Cleveland when he blew a lead, and it was down the stretch when things were still maybe within grasp for the Twins, you know, that neck and neck with the Guardians. And we get into the clubhouse and he was just standing there and he was like, all right, guys, let's go. And we're like, you sure? He's like, yep. And he sat there and he answered every question. And I just gave him so much credit because it has to be so hard. We know how last season went for him. And every time he was there at his locker, waiting, ready to go answer the questions. And I just admire that about him. You don't see that as often, but he every single time. And which is why I was so happy to see things go so well for him this year, because last year was so tough. And this year he was really, really good and still great media wise. Again, like I said, he could have been a media good guy candidate for sure. So whatever happens with him, I hope he lands at a good spot because he's a good dude.
You know, there are a lot of athletes, and it's usually the very elite ones. I mean, like superstar status. They know when they messed up, right? So they actually respect that it's how you ask it. It's not so much that you're asking what, you know, hey, you did this. Like back at that same game we're talking about in that same locker room, I had to ask Adrian Peterson about his fumbles, but no one was asking. Right. And so I just say, Adrian, the fumbles though, like so uncharacteristic, especially. And he's like, I know, like and then afterwards he goes, thanks for asking about that. Cause I didn't want to have to bring it up myself, but that as an athlete that sticks in my craw, you know, like, so they know. But it's how you ask.
For sure.
I know I would be a jerk if I was asked a question in a locker room. Like I played sports. If there was someone that came over and goes, oh yeah, really whiffed on that kick in the soccer game. Like I might be a jerk to that person. Like I know, because your emotions are high.
And there's an art to figuring out the right way to ask it. And I stress about it every time. I mean, there's nothing that I find more stressful than after a tough loss with the Twins going into the post-game scrum with Rocco. I'm like, how do I word this? You know, it's just like, I mean, and I'll be honest, I'm not going to name the player because I won't do that. But during the season this year, I asked a player a question about a game and I worded it in a way that as soon as it came out of my mouth, I didn't like it. And I was like, and he reacted kind of gave a look but he went about it and still kind of answered it, but I could tell that it irked him too. And I'm sitting there just, oh my God, why did I say it that way? And it bothered me for the rest of the night, the next day, everything. And then so like 2 games later, because this is on the road, I'm getting ready to go down to the bus and the elevator opens. And sure enough, said player is the only person in the elevator. And I walk and I'm like, hi. So, hey, I wanted to apologize about how I worded that question the other night. I didn't like how it came out of my mouth. He goes, I'll be honest with you, I didn't like how it came out of your mouth either. And I was like, well, I appreciate the honesty. I'm like, but I hope that you know that I'm not one of those people that just always like coming on the attack. He's like, I know, which is why I'm not mad. I don't hold it against you. He's like, maybe next time just think about it first. And I was like, I know it's been haunting me for 2 days.
That player gained more respect for you for coming and saying something.
Well, and I have so much respect for them, the pressure that they, right? And the last thing they need is for me to, harp on it. And it, like I said, the second it came out of my mouth, I was like, well, that's not how I wanted to word it. It was basically like I was trying to allude to this issue that had been an issue kind of popped up again, but it didn't end up derailing the game or, but it was focusing too much on that thing had been negative a couple games in a row now. And, it just, it still bothers me. I was glad that I was able to apologize. And like I said, he was like, I know you, which is why I'm not mad. Like,
that
I
was
know
the universe with the elevator.
Oh, the elevator. Right? It was like, ding. And I was like,
where to go, Audra?
You're the last person.
You're up.
You're the last person I want to see right now. But I can't, it's like, all right, well, yeah, the universe is forcing me to apologize because I had wanted to the last couple of days. But funny how things work out like that, right? Yeah.
Well, talk about having to be delicate. Let's go to the wild. Gosh.
It's a good time to crack open my Diet Coke. Is that okay? I'm going to get some caffeine going.
A little harder in there? I don't know. I got water. I had let's just address the elephant in the room. Everyone's going to talk about the constraints of money and getting, a suitor and Preezies, things off the books. Okay, we know that.
Right.
But I still... just how they started, it's almost like, all right, so we have these constraints, but we're still good players and we're going to do something. And then it seemed like the one wheel was falling off. And now it seems like they got threes that are wobbly. Yeah. And I really like this team. I just want them to get it together.
Yeah, it's been a head scratcher, totally. Because think about last year. I mean, gosh, those first 3 games when they had given up 20 goals, right?
Yeah.
After that third game, Wes and I looked at each other and we were like, whoa, this is going to be a long season, right? Yes. And it took a while. And Wes and I have talked about it during our shows a couple times. Last year, the turning point was that game against Carolina, and it was November 19th. And Sam Steele tied it up, and then Goose had that awesome goal in overtime, right? Yeah. And after that, they went on this great hot streak. And Wes brought it up a couple games ago, and he was like, we're not far off from last year when there was that game against Carolina, and things completely turned after that. And they did. So I think we've been kind of waiting for that game, that turnaround game, right? Because we're not too far off from November 19th. And look at how they did the rest of it. It ended up being one of the best seasons they've had point-wise. Yep. Right? So all is not lost, but it's going to get late in the season real fast if things don't turn around. I think for me, it's just kind of confusing that there wasn't really much turnover at all on this roster. I mean, losing Matt Dumba, that stinks in some ways, but, Pat Maroon is really like the only new guy, and I think he's done great. I think that was a great pickup. So for as much like roster consistency as there has been this year, it is kind of confusing that things haven't clicked the way that they have. And I don't know, because I feel bad for Gus and for Marc-Andre Fleury because their numbers are so skewed where, they have had some rough games, but they have had some games where they have done everything they can. And they still, unfortunately, the numbers aren't show. They gave up 4 or 5 goals, but so many of them were not their fault because there's just been so many breakdowns defensively and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I did feel pretty good, though, about the games in Sweden because that game, the last home game against Dallas, we can all
let's forget about it.
Oh my gosh, right? We don't even want to talk about it. It was
a drinking game.
It was one of those afterwards.
Yes.
I like,
you're like, here's a goal, social.
Yeah. Like post game, it was like, oh boy, I was working with Wes that game. I was like, okay, here we go. Cause it's hard to do a post game show. After a loss is hard. Yes. After a loss like that, it's really hard. And you're just like, okay, well, we just have to, kind of call it like it is. But those 2 games in Sweden, even though they didn't win, there were good signs, right? They got back to more of their game, the defensive stuff, getting tightened up. Good to see the PK had such a strong game, game 1. So, hopefully things are headed in the right direction. But again, it's going to get late real fast if they don't start kind of turning around.
And I'm not an apologist for the injuries, right? But when your captain is gone, just up until recently, and when Matt Boldy was out, I think they really realized how it was tough life without him back. Now he's back. They're getting into a rhythm. The big question is, what is going on with Kirill?
Yeah. And I wish I knew the answer. People have asked me, like, is he hurt? Because he had that one maintenance day, right, at practice the other day. Then I think Dean said that there was like something that was nagging. Yeah, he definitely doesn't look like himself. We've talked about it a couple times. Maybe is there pressure now that he has the A on his sweater of having to live up to that as well? But yeah, I mean, there's no denying that he does not look like himself. it's funny. This is obviously a couple games ago, but I remember the 12th game of the season, he still had 12 points. So he's a point per game player, which is great. But we all know that Kirill is not happy with 1 point per game.
Right.
We know that he's capable of more than that, and the turnovers. And I don't know. I'm not a hockey coach. Didn't play in the NHL. Don't know what the key to solving that is. But yeah, the turnovers have been alarming because that's just not him. And
Right.
I wish we could solve it. I'm sure Dean wishes he could solve it. I'm sure Kirill wishes that he could solve it. I don't know if it's just trying too hard, forcing it too much. I don't know. But, luckily, not to go from the, Debbie Downer of, Kirill hasn't looked great. There are some things that I am excited. I mean, the fact that Marco Rossi has looked as good as he is one of my favorite storylines already, right? Because considering what he's already gone through in his career with COVID and everything, and the first two cups of coffee in the league not going well, with all the pressure that he had on him, it's great to see him kind of living up to the expectations that everybody knew that he was capable of, because he has looked great. Brock Faber has looked great.
Yes.
I give him a lot of credit. That game where he made a mistake that cost him, and he totally owned up to it. He's like, that was a bad decision, blah, blah, blah. Just owned it. I'm like, wow, for a rookie to just come right out right after the game and say, that's on me, I made a mistake. I give him a lot of credit.
He was like that in college. We'd have to go talk to him in college, and he'd be exactly like that.
Yeah.
So, he was ready for this.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you could probably go down the road too with Phil Gustafson. Pressure of, last year went so well, and he gets this big contract extension, the pressure of maybe trying to live up to what happened last year, which is unfortunate because his first game, opening night against Florida, getting a shutout, you're like, wow, okay, he's right back to where he was last year. And then it hasn't
tough.
Yeah. But that, his game in Sweden though was good. So hopefully that whole Sweden trip was a good thing, for everybody. Get away, have a good time, once in a lifetime kind of opportunity to go play in a beautiful city. And they did well, I mean, 2 points. I know you would have liked to come home with 4, but at least they didn't come home with none.
Right.
I know. But
Well, we'll see after their, what do you call it? The kick in the ass meeting.
Rental Karen.
So,
yeah. You never know. I mean, again, go back to the Twins. Remember when we were in Atlanta and they had that closed door meeting, and Rocco was like, this plane will go to Baltimore when it goes to Baltimore. And I remember thinking, oh boy, I'm going to be sitting on that bus for a while.
His New England roots showed that day.
Yeah, it was, and it worked.
It's tough. It got to be.
It did. Yeah. Sometimes you really got to just, so, we'll see. Maybe they'll come back. Black Friday against Colorado. That's going to be a good test. Yeah. If they play well against that, then maybe we can start, feeling a little bit more confident that things really are on the right track. But that's going to be a tough matchup.
Stringing things together.
Especially the day after Thanksgiving.
Ready for a women-forward car dealership? Rudy Luther Toyota empowers their many women on staff in sales, management, and service. Whether you are looking for a new Toyota or pre-owned vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota has something for everyone. Every vehicle comes with a Luther Advantage. 10 cents off fuel and car wash discounts at holiday stations, Luther Advantage warranty, and 5-day return policy on pre-owned vehicles. Located just 5 minutes west of downtown Minneapolis, off 394 and General Mills Boulevard. And they're also hiring. Want to join the team but don't know where to start? Visit rudyluthertoyota.com today.
Let's also let you know that all energy solar panel installations are done right and made easy thanks to more than 14 years of experience in Minnesota and beyond. All Energy Solar is ready to take any solar project from design to installation and everything in between, whether you're talking about home, business, or both. Find out more about going solar at allenergysolar.com/coach. That was awkward, but I think you got the message. allenergysolar.com/coach.
So I know you, and a lot of the listeners know you from watching TV, but they may not know how you got into the business. And, did you love hockey growing up or any of that? And I know your story. So, but can you tell the people that are listening here, people always they're still fascinated. Like, how did you get into the business and what you do? And, did your brothers teach you, your uncles, your dad? And then when you tell them the true story, they're like, what? Yeah.
Yeah. Cause mine, no brothers, no dad. My dad is a pilot in every sense of the word. When he's not actually flying planes, he's flying the simulator that we have at our house. So he was not a sports fan. The only person in my family that was a sports fan was my grandmother, and she was a big Cubs fan. And so she was the one that got me into baseball. I got into hockey because my sister and I are complete opposites. And when we were younger, I found an old TV in our basement and I snuck it up into my room one day because we weren't allowed to have televisions. And my parents came home and my sister told on me and she's like, yeah, our Audra has a TV in her room now. And they're like, whatever, just keep it. You know, you guys just watch TV together up there. So anytime my sister would come into my room to try to watch TV, I would put on whatever sporting event was on, and it was winter. So it was a lot of Bulls games and a lot of Blackhawks games. And she would just get so annoyed and be like, I don't want to watch this. And I'd be like, well, too bad, it's my room. This is what we're watching. And that is legitimately how I watched like my first hockey game ever, was because I was trying to get my sister out of my room. And I was like, this is actually kind of entertaining. And I watched it, and Mighty Ducks 2 was coming out around the same time, which quickly became one of my favorites, still one of my all-time favorite movies. But that's legitimately how I first kind of got into hockey, just randomly watching it on television one day. And then when I was in college, I worked for a team in the SPHL. Actually, when I started working for them, it was the Florida Seals. So SPHL, really like bottom, totem pole team wise. Worked for them for a couple years in college. And then my first job in broadcasting was with the Atlanta Thrashers. Mm-hmm. And I was like their fill-in rinkside person. And that, once I had a taste of that, it was like on like Donkey Kong, right? I was like, okay, I want to keep doing this. But it was tough. When they moved to Winnipeg, I was like, okay, I want to keep doing this. So I sent my resume tape everywhere, but I had so little experience. I was a broadcast major in college and stuff like that. But in terms of live television, I was the fill-in. I only worked like 12 games for the Thrashers. So, none of these Fox Sports regionals are willing to take a chance on me. And so once they moved to Winnipeg, I was unemployed. I worked for Family Feud and did a lot of production stuff around Atlanta because it's like the Hollywood of the East, right? So worked on a lot of movies and TV shows, and my full-time gig was was at Family Feud. And Steve Harvey, was the one. I've told this story a bunch of times, but like one day he was talking to the audience and giving advice, and he's like, my best advice I give to people is, don't ever have plan B. People think it's so smart to have a backup plan, but that's basically subconsciously telling yourself that it's okay to settle for something less than your dream. If you just think, okay, I can fall back on something else, you will never go after your dream 110%. And I was sitting backstage with my headset and my walkie-talkie on, and I beeped to my whole team. I said, "Oh, crap." And they're like, what? I was like, I feel like he was just like talking to me, right? To me. Yeah. So I went home that night and I wrote him a letter just to tell him that, what he said kind of made an impact. And I went to work. I gave it to his manager the next day, and I get a beep on my radio, and he's like, "Audra, Steve wants to talk to you." And I was like, okay. And I come back to his dressing room. I was like, oh my God, because you don't talk to Steve, right?
Don't talk to the
So I'm sitting out there. He comes out of his dressing room. He's got the note in his hand. We start talking, and he's like, so what is it that you want to do? And I'm like, I want to be in broadcasting. I want to be a sports broadcaster. And he was like, okay. He's like, so why do you work here? And I just was nervous, and I start rambling. I'm like, oh, Steve, I love working here. This job's great, blah, blah, blah. And he just goes, stop. Why do you work here? And I was like, I guess because you're my plan B. He's like, absolutely. He's like, and I will not be anybody's plan B. He's like, so here's what we're going to do. I'll give you one more season. And if you're back after that, I will fire you, because you will not go after that if you have the cushion of just staying here and working here. And I was like, okay. He's like, I'm serious. And I mean, at that point, I knew that he was serious.
And subconsciously, you wanted him to toe the line because you wrote the note.
It's like I needed somebody to kind of kick my butt. I mean, looking back on it now, I 110% was doing the whole, I'm pursuing a career in sports broadcasting, but pursuing was basically
sending a tape
here and there and waiting for an opportunity to fall in my lap. And so that night I went home and I updated my resume tape and my cover letter and all of that. And I sent it out to every job that was available in the United States. I even applied for a job in Anchorage, Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah. Cause I was like, if I don't do this now while I'm like super motivated, then I'm going to just go right back to the whole quote pursuing thing. And so, so I applied to, I don't even know how many jobs that night. And a couple days later, I got a phone call from the ABC affiliate in Huntsville, Alabama, and had an interview. And like a week or two after that, I got the job. And so I was able to go back and tell Steve, I'm like, Steve, I got a job. I'm going to be a sports anchor in Alabama. And he was so happy. And then like flash forward a couple years later, when I had gotten a job in Nashville, Tennessee, one of the local magazines did an article about women's sports, and they had part of the article was about me because at the time I was the only female broadcaster or sports broadcaster in Nashville, and so they did like a sub article about it, and I told the guy that was doing the article that story about Steve, and he included it in the article, and I was like, I think Steve would like this, so I took the magazine when it came out and I drove back to Atlanta. And I went to a taping of Family Feud and I gave it to him. And when he came back after the show, he told somebody to bring me back to his locker or to his dressing room. And he came out with the magazine and he had like a tear in his eye. Like he was literally like emotional. He's like, will you autograph this for me? And he kept the magazine.
Oh,
yeah. And I know the crazy part about that too, is the guy who wrote the article was like freelancing, but like his full-time job was like in finance. And he was like, oh my God, I'm living my plan B. Finance is my plan B. He quit his job.
Stop
and
it.
ended up now, last I checked, I should go back. I don't know what he's up to these days, but he quit his full-time job to end up doing sports reporting and journalism full-time and ended up becoming a columnist in Nashville and like a reporter full-time in Nashville. So of course I'm like messaging everybody who knows Steve. I'm like, tell Steve, like it's having a ripple effect. Like,
that's so great.
Yeah. I mean, you never know. Like all sometimes it takes is just like some person to just say something, right? And kick your butt that, it's like your parents, your friends, everybody can like encourage you to do something, but sometimes it's just the most random conversations or interactions that you kind of need to, because I probably, if I didn't hear that, I probably still would have been in Atlanta, like working in production, which I loved, but not what I wanted to do. And and then
have you kept in touch with Steve?
Not directly with Steve, but a lot of people from Family Feud. Yes. Yeah. I didn't have like that, buddy of a relationship. I know that he has followed along because one of like his warm-up guy, his audience warm-up guy is still a friend of mine. And so I'll like, oh, tell Steve, because there was another article that was written about this. I was like, will you give it to Steve? And he's like, sure. So who knows? Like, if I ever cross paths with him again, I will give him a huge hug and be like, seriously, I owe you my life. Like, but yeah. And then, so I was in Nashville and then I auditioned for the job at NHL Network that Jamie Hirsch got. And I was devastated because I had to quit my job in Nashville in order to go to that audition in New York or New Jersey.
Why is that?
Because my news director was like, well, if you don't really want to be here, we don't want you here. And so I was like, okay. So I resigned and ended up finding out that Jamie got the job and I was like devastated, right? Because I'm like, oh my God, I don't have a job now.
Right.
And then luckily my agent called me. He was like, hey, what do you think about Minnesota? And I was like, I was just going to call you. Because once I found out it was Jamie, I was like, well, if Jamie's leaving, who's taking Jamie's job?
Who's taking her
Sign
job?
me up. Yeah. I will move to Minnesota 100%. So yeah, it all worked out 100% because I love it here. I love Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if I would, but I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Right? I was going to say, like
my first contract was 3 years and I'm like, I think I'm 3 and out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they're like, what? We're not talking football. I go, no, I mean, if my, I don't, because when I first got here, they lied to me and told me it doesn't snow in October, and it did. Right? I was like, where's the whole other month of fall?
Yeah.
And I had a very difficult moving from Chicago. That's where I was working before I came here. I was recruited. The former news director was like, I want you to come here. I want you to come here. And I love Chicago. I didn't have to leave. And I was like, well, and he kept, I always joke around, and his name is Ted Canova, our news director. And I still call, he's the man I moved to Minnesota for. He even said it to his wife. I go, he's the man I moved to Minnesota for, But like, I have a 3-year contract. He was gone a year and a half in.
Of course,
I feel like a player, like that went to go play for coach. So the fact that, I've been here since 2004 still blows my mind.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to do that math. Like, I've lived here the longest other than where I've lived at home.
Right.
And for a journalist to say that, because, I went from Boston to San Diego to Milwaukee to Chicago to here, you're kind of all over the place.
Yep.
To be like, whoa.
When you find a spot in this business that you like, it I don't know about you, but like I feel lucky, right? Because I feel like so many people move around waiting to find that place that feels like home or really feel like they found their spot, right?
Or you tried too hard to make it home.
Yep. Yeah.
Where all of a sudden, like they always say, Minnesota will sneak up on you.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. And then suddenly you're here as many years as we've been here, and you're like, wait, This is home now. Yeah. I love it here. I really do. I always joke around. I'm like, if the Twins with Wild or Bally or whatever, I mean, that's a whole nother story. But if anybody would like give me like a 10-year deal, I would sign it. No question. Because the stability and like being in a city around organizations and stuff that you love is a huge blessing in this industry. So yeah, I feel very lucky every single day that I've been. It's weird. I'm like, I can't believe this is my 9th season with the Wild.
I know.
It flies. It flies. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It's great.
Who has been maybe your number one female mentor for this business, if you even have one?
Female,
or one that you looked up to that you may not even know that you kind of fashioned?
Oh my God. I feel like that's like such a, I mean, I could point to a million because they're, you know, I always laugh like when college students, you know, or younger females that are trying to pursue this, like ask for advice. I'm like, I almost get jealous because when I was in college, there weren't very many, right? I mean, when I was in college, like Erin Andrews was just kind of starting to break into the business and stuff. But before that, it was, you know, Andrea Kramer, Michelle Tafoya, Pam Oliver. And these are legends, right?
Right.
But they were so few and far between that I think that's part of the reason that I didn't pursue journalism right out of college because I was so intimidated and it just didn't seem like it was possible, I guess, if that makes sense. Right. And there, I will admit, there was also a part of me that, you know, growing up in Chicago, I knew that, you know, the whole path to this career is starting in a small town. And I wasn't really okay, or I didn't like the thought of moving to a small town to start in a small market. And so that's why I didn't pursue journalism right away. My first job out of college was in the front office of the Atlanta Braves. So that's why I'm glad that like Steve kind of kicked my butt into going and doing it because, you know, you look back at what your professors say when they're like, you want to start in a small town so you can make all the mistakes in a small town instead of, you know, in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And they were right. Cause man, let me tell you, I made some mistakes for sure. My first, you know, sports reporting gig, plenty of mistakes. But
yeah, mine was at New England Sports Network.
Oh,
so I had 6 states, including the one you grow up in. So so your family, your first grade teacher, you know, like your college professors, because I went to Boston College. Everybody sees your mistakes, like everybody.
I give you credit because people have asked, like, do you want to go home to Chicago? And part of the reason that I have said no is because I'm not a huge fan of huge cities. Like I don't like LA. I don't like New York. Chicago is still to me huge. I like big cities that don't feel like huge cities. But yeah, another part of that is like, I don't know if I would want to deal with the pressure of being on television in my hometown where like everybody that I grew up with can watch me have like a horrible broadcast. Like, I mean, like we were laughing about this the other day at work. One of my more embarrassing moments was when I called Ricky Rubio Marco Rubio because it was during the election year and my producer was in my ear saying like, hey, when we come out of commercial, we're going to promote that the Wolves are playing so-and-so, like full screen of Rubio and, you know, LeBron or whatever. And I was like, okay. And I just half paying attention. I'm like, oh, you know, if you're looking for basketball action, you know, head on over to Fox Sports North Plus. It was Fox Sports at the time. Marco Rubio and the Timberwolves, and it didn't even dawn on me until I could feel my phone because I had my phone in like my back pocket was like vibrating like crazy, and I was like, "Did I say something stupid?" Because my phone is blowing up, and my producer Peter goes, "Yeah, you called." Ricky Rubio, Marco Rubio. I was mortified. So at least I'm doing that in Minnesota and not in front of all of, you know, the people who bullied me in high school and like, you know, were terrible. Like, haha.
Well, also, and I was having this conversation with my photographer. The longer you're in this business, the more that's going to happen, right? Because now, like some of the former athletes you used to cover now have kids that are coming up and like, hey, if they're a junior, you're all set, right? But if not, sometimes your brain, especially people don't realize the hours we work.
Yeah.
And like last night, I was just telling Brandon, our producer, like I didn't get home from Denver till 1 a.m. to this morning, right? Yeah. So thankfully I'm off today, but sometimes you just got to wake up and just go. So people don't understand, right? And they're like, you're even writing it. So the recent thing for me, and we have these slugs in our rundown for sports, and it's Friday nights. Sometimes I use a preview for the big noon Saturday game on Fox.
Okay.
And there's this guy, Joel Klatt. And he does it. And so I just write the slug. So no one in America, no one in Minnesota sees what I call my slugs, right? It could be, you know, big noon. It could be whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote Trent Klatt, right? And so I didn't didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Like, so Trent Klatt and blah, blah, blah. So I have this young producer and he's so funny. He goes, hey, Dawn, it's not in your script, but the slug says Trent Klatt. Isn't our Fox guy Joel Klatt? And I started laughing.
Yep.
And he goes, who's Trent Klatt? I go, former Minnesota hockey player, everybody. And that is how my brain works.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't say it on air, but you do. You just kind of, say it like that.
If it's like because my best girlfriend is married to a guy named Eric Hartman. So the amount of times that I have called Ryan Eric, I have done it on air. I know of once. It's one of those that just makes me nervous because for me, for years, I have known Eric Hartman, not Ryan. When Ryan showed up, the first thing I said was like, oh no, like I feel like I'm just going to one day call him Eric because it's just second nature, right? Like, yeah, it stinks. I did it the other day with these Sweden games because we had so the first day was a 9:30 a.m. pregame show. For me, that was a 3 a.m. wake up. And then the 7 o'clock or 6:30 show was a midnight wake up for me. So I'm delusionally tired. And I came out of commercial break and I was like, it's 2-1 after 1 so far in Toyota as we welcome you back to our, 2-1 in Sweden as we welcome you back to our Toyota intermission report. I'm Audra, and I just looked at the camera. I said, "It's early. Forgive me." Because at that point you have to laugh at yourself,
you have to
right?
laugh at it.
You're like, nobody's even awake, this early in the morning. But yeah, it happens.
I said to my photographer when Josh Dobbs came on, I'm like, we're going to have a field day with this. He goes, why? I go, because I know a Josh Cobb and a Josh Dobb.
Oh gosh,
and he's Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
I go. So any combination can come out and still he's like, hey, so far you're good. You're 10 for 10. I'm like, yeah. And it's like, you really know a Josh Cobb? I go, yes. And a Josh Dobb.
Yep. And when you're in the zone and you're talking and whatever, it just whatever comes out of your mouth, sometimes you can't control it. That's going back to what you were saying earlier. Like if you have a job in whatever industry, nobody's there with a camera in your face and a microphone, right? Nobody is on television and oh, it's the worst part.
I did not have, when I was in Boston, and we didn't have a cough button, right? And a lot of places don't, right? But back then it was kind of, so I didn't have them, but I was about to sneeze. And I messed up my last name because I didn't want to sneeze. And so I said, I'm Dawn Middle. Because I was holding in a sneeze. Yep. And so everybody would call me over the intercom as soon as the show's on. Dawn Middle, you got a phone call? Dawn Middle. So everyone was making fun,
Yeah.
But then again, making your mistakes in front of your family. Like my dad would say, what was that blazer you were wearing? I'm like, it was the most hideous one too. My mom bought it for me for Christmas. My dad made me wear it. And I wore it. He's like, oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Don't wear it again.
Yeah.
Everyone sees that stuff.
Right.
There's also another topic that if you were like me, it's been a very long week.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this. Bring it on, Dawn.
Bring it on. It's been a very long week and a very tough week. And, I've been messaging back and forth with my friend Laura Oakman about this. And she was on our show podcast a couple of weeks ago. The Charissa Thompson saying what she did. And not even once, apparently, but twice. I didn't know she said it beforehand.
Yeah.
I know my week in terms of, and I don't really pay attention to Twitter trolls, but they're out full force. I could say it is November and they could be like, oh, really? You're making that up? Like that kind of stuff. Yep. How's that been for you? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, So I was actually very, very sick all of last week. So that was a blessing in disguise. And I was nervous because I'm like, oh my God, of all weeks to get sick, because I had to wake up, for these early games. Luckily by the weekend, I was fine. But when all of that happened, I was sleeping all day, migraines and in bed. So I kind of woke up and saw it and was in a cloud. And when I started reading all of it, man, did that wake me up. I was like, what? And then I went down the rabbit hole of reading everything and I saw Laura's comments. I saw Molly McGrath. I saw, I'm trying to think.
Lisa Salter.
Lisa Salter was a good one. A bunch. They were flooding my Twitter timeline. My first initial reaction was I was just really disappointed because I like Charissa and I think she does a great job. And she's beautiful,
I agree on both those counts.
She's got a great personality. I really enjoy her. So I was just kind of disappointed. First of all, because it puts a lot of cloud over everybody else. Everyone's going to be like saying, oh, well, did you make that up? I mean, I can't imagine making something up. I've been in a position where, your producer's like, hey, can you add to this? Or do you have something, any stories today? And you have to just sometimes say, no, I didn't really get much. There was nobody in the clubhouse or, whatever. Or, the topic that they're talking about, they want you to contribute to, Rocco maybe gave me 2 words about. Well, you take those 2 words, you take whatever, and you go off of that. You don't make anything up. And if you're prepared enough, then it shouldn't be an issue. You can say whatever the cliche and then add to it by either something you talked to a different player about or something that the coach had said earlier in the week and refer to that,
Exactly.
The making things up. That was just kind of disappointing because I was like, great, everybody's going to just assume now or like question how much of what we're saying is accurate. What really, really bothered me was clicking on the posts from, like Tracy Wolfson had a great one too.
Mm-hmm.
Then like seeing
the comments
the comments afterwards were really disheartening of how many people were like, whoa, why are you getting so upset about this? Sideline reporters are pointless. Nobody cares. Nobody listens. Those halftime interviews are the most pointless thing ever. Like that was just really disheartening to me because I'm like, man, I've been doing this for so long that I feel like I have worked hard enough where I feel like I add to the broadcast or I contribute. Like, and I know baseball is different. I don't have the halftime interviews. And yes, those halftime interviews with coaches a lot of times are cliche. And I'm sure coaches don't love doing them. But for every time that you do like those cliche ones, you're closer to like having the one that's awesome, right? Like where a coach does say something epic or they go off or they give you something great. Like, it's going to be maybe few and far between compared to the cliche type interviews, but they are important regardless. And you don't make them up, right? You wait patiently for the time where you are going to have a really awesome one. And those halftime interviews are such a small part of what we do, right?
You're the eyes and ears a lot. You're the only person on the field of that broadcast. And I was saying this earlier to Vanita. I was on her radio show and I'm like, listen, half of what you see when you're on the field and you're giving back to them, you may not even present on air.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of information. And for me, when I did the sidelines for Fox, I did the network sidelines for probably about 5 years or so for the regionals.
Mm-hmm.
And it depended on what director you got into what you did. Like someone would say, sell me the story.
Right.
Yeah, doesn't matter. Interrupt us on the headset, sell me a story and I'll come to you.
Right.
Someone else said, hey, and I'll know them. I love you. This isn't a testament on you. I just do if there's an injury, and then I'll get the halftime update with the coach. That's it. That's all I do.
Right.
And I'd be like, I still get paid the same, right?
Right.
Like, yes. I'm like, all right. Like you just go with what the director is the king.
Yeah.
And what they say goes.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. It is disheartening because whoever says silent reporting isn't journalism had never went to journalism school.
Yeah.
And if that's what because yes, and I've had this discussion on other podcasts, I find it disheartening that the sideline role has been the cliche opening starter role for a woman.
Right.
It's kind of been that way. Right. And I had an intern once when I was in Chicago. My friend's like, oh, you're not going to be happy with her. And I was like, why? And she was lovely. Mm-hmm. But halfway through the day, I said, so what made you want to get into sports broadcasting? She goes, well, I actually want to be a reporter for like TMZ and an entertainment show. But they told me the easiest way for me to get on air is in sports.
Yeah.
And then my photographer goes, and there it is, because he saw my face. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it's not. Yeah. Because those women, like that, plan B, right? If you want to be an entertainment reporter, go be an entertainment reporter.
Right.
And if you want to be sports.
Right. Don't take that job away from somebody who really wants to do it.
Exactly. And you're going to get eaten alive if you make one mistake, because if you make one mistake as a person that knows her sports and knows journalism, it's hard. Yeah. Like you're just setting yourself up harder. Yeah. Like at Boston College, if we were writing a story or even if we're doing one for a broadcast, whatever, if you said the name wrong or if you spelt it wrong in the graphic, you got an F. Yeah. And you never attribute. I would not want someone to say, Dawn Mitchell said this to me, blah, 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 at the meeting. I'm like, I wasn't even at the meeting.
Right.
Like I would be angry.
Right.
So you learn early, like you take those ethics.
Yep.
Very, very dearly to your heart.
Yeah.
So
that
was the part.
maybe it was Michelle, because Michelle was on with Vanita too, right?
Yes.
It might. I mean, I listened to so many people's comments and stuff. It might have been Michelle. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But whoever it was brought up a really good point too, that there's so much that goes on behind the scenes in terms of sideline reporters, and she nailed it too. Because when we are sitting in there, with Rocco pregame, Diet Coke. I asked Rocco, a couple questions, and then, the beat reporters and stuff, they all start answering their questions and stuff too. And there are sometimes where I just ask Rocco 1 or 2 questions, but there are sometimes where I ask him a ton, where sometimes I feel bad that I may be taking up too much of the time. But later on in the broadcast, Dick and whoever his analysts
they'll use that.
Are talking, right? And they don't attribute it to me. Like, they don't say, oh, well, Audra specifically asked Rocco about this, right? It just becomes part of the conversation. But that was a question that I asked. Or when we're sitting around at the dinner table beforehand, and if Dick, wasn't in there with Rocco, he'd be like, hey, Audra, what did Rocco talk about? And I'll give him the lowdown, like, bullet points. Or again, like, there's conversation, because I'm in the clubhouse for so long before the game. So like, I may know what's going on injury wise with somebody or blah, blah, blah. And so there's plenty of times where our broadcasts have something to do with a question that I asked, but it just because Dick didn't say like, oh, well, Audra asked specifically about this, doesn't mean, that I didn't contribute, or just, the only things that I'm saying on air, that's not the only thing that I had been doing, that day. I don't know. There's just, especially I remember when I did sidelines for the Titans, you sit in these production meetings with the coaches and the key players and stuff, and you ask all these questions where you almost lose track of who asked the coach what question, right? It becomes a group and a team effort of how you get the storylines, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, in the reverse, like, there are times where Dick asks a question to Rocco, and it happens to coincide with a story that I'm doing in the game, and I don't sit there and say, well, Dick asked Rocco, you know what I mean? It just becomes a collaborative group effort. And so I just, the halftime coaches interviews, I get it. Like, a lot of times it's cliche, but the times that it's not, that's gold. And again, that is just such a small fraction of what sideline reporters do. And I will admit, like, I was watching the game last night, the Chiefs and Eagles game. And I just, when Laura, I want to call her Laura McKeeman because I've known her for so long, but Laura Rutledge, like, popped on. I think she does such a great job. And I just remember thinking, like, and there's probably tons of people watching her right now being like, did you actually talk to the coach, or are you making it up? Exactly. And that's what bothers me, because I think Laura's fantastic. I've known her since, we go back, and we're not like super close forever, but, she has grown so much from where she started in her career, and she is where she is because she works so hard, and she's so good at her job, and she deserves to have that role. And it just kind of broke my heart for her that there's people probably watching her being like, well, you're just making that up. Right. So unfair.
Someone specifically asked me, really? Well, give me one example of a sideline where it actually worked. And I go, I will give you one. And I know you watched it last week. I go, Sharon Moore crying, Michigan. I go, Jenny Taft was there. Now, people wouldn't even know it was Jenny Taft because she expertly laid out, but because that guy, Sharon Moore, the assistant, he was filling in, if you don't know the story, if you're listening, he was filling in for Jim Harbaugh, who couldn't be with the team. So here was, and it was emotional for the whole, because they won, for the whole team. Yep. And so Jenny asked, now, if you didn't have a relationship, first of all, to let that coach be vulnerable, that wouldn't happen.
Right.
And if you're not there, if you wait till they come to the podium or the table, you don't get that emotion.
Nope.
Right. So she got him crying and this and that. And I know it's become a meme now and everything like that. But that is why you're there.
Yeah. 100%.
And someone goes, oh, yeah, I didn't even think of that. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't even know who that was. I go, see, and that's another part of our job. We're there to give you what's going on. Mm-hmm. And she asked a question enough to, get this emotion out of this strong coach and really nailed it, put her hand on the pulse of what was going on with that team.
Yep.
Whether you want to judge that team or not, that's what they're feeling. And that's what we're the conduits
absolutely
to bring you what we know from behind the scenes.
Think back to the Super Bowl. Remember when CBS got away from having sideline reporters and then the Super Bowl and the power went out and it was like, well, if we had a sideline reporter down there, they would have more information. I just remember watching that being like, well, I bet they wish that they had a sideline reporter. And then what do you know? The next year they brought back sideline reporters. Mm-hmm. I know the power going out at a Super Bowl is not going to happen very often, but when things like that do happen,
you see what you miss.
They are the eyes and ears too. They, it's part of a group. I mean, we're talking about covering teams. The production and the broadcast is a team effort too. So yeah, I was disappointed. I feel like we've all worked so hard to like earn our keep or like earn the respect or like, to be an equal. And that I feel like, and not even just for female sideline reporters, because in Major League Baseball, there's a lot of male sideline reporters. The Mets have Stephen Gelb. The Guardians have Andre Knott. I mean, there's probably at this point a chunk, because I think the Marlins have one too. Like there are, men in these roles now and men on the sidelines, Cole Kubelik, all these guys that are college football sideline reporters now too, so it's not just women who took a hit on this. It's the role in general but yes, of course it, reflects a little differently on females in the role, but it's just, it does a disservice to anybody who.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It was on Twitter, and I'm trying to remember which sideline reporter. And he said, it was a guy, and he said, I am a Black sideline reporter, and I've worked my tail off to get this job. If I said those words, I would not have a job right now.
Yeah.
And he said, and I'm a male, and I know that if I said those words, it wouldn't. So there's so many different layers to it. Well, seriously, when I was like you, I wasn't sick, but I was busy, right? So I'm like at the Vikings, and I'm in between people. Like, have you seen this? And I looked at, I thought it was an Onion article. Like I literally laughed. I'm like, oh, that's an Onion. Okay. They go, no, that's like real. And I was like, I was like, I said, I'm in between writing 2 different stories and going live at 5 and 6. Yeah. I don't have time to go down and like, well, you're going to respond. I'm like, no, I am not. This is a powder keg. Yeah. And I'm not going to respond. First of all, I like Charissa. Second of all, I think she's great. I do. I think I love watching her on air. So, and I don't like, and Laura puts a perfect woman on woman crime. I've spent my whole career supporting women. So if I'm going to say something, I'm going to know what I'm talking about. So I didn't. And then I felt like everyone else's voice, I go, Laura, that's exactly what I've done. Yeah. So I figured, you know what, Twitter's such a cesspool sometimes, or X, whatever you want to call it, that I said the voices out there are good. And then when Vanita asked me to be on the radio show, I was. There's been a couple of more, I think, things that are going on as the fallout of the non-apology. That's what I'm calling it. Yeah. But I'm like, I'm at a point in my career where I know my stuff. I know I've never fabricated anything. I'm actually comfortable enough in my career that if I didn't have information, I said, that's a great question. If I see them, I want to ask them myself, you know? But some people don't, have that, but I know. I don't know. There's so much to it that just made it a very difficult week for a lot of, especially women sideline reporters and just reporters in general. Yeah.
I know if there's anything that came out of this, I hope that any young aspiring sideline reporters or sports broadcasters of any capacity saw the backlash and that they know that that's not the norm. Like you don't get to where you want to be in this role or this industry by making stuff up. That's not gonna.
I think that's not how it works. The big mystery is most people don't know what we do for a job. Yeah. Right. They'll be like, okay, so you're on let's just say, you're on at 6:00 for 2 minutes. What do you do the rest of the day? I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. There's a lot went into that 2 minutes. Right. But there's a lot that goes on. So I know I've kept you here a long time, but I do want to ask you this. Yeah. If there were like a peek behind the curtain that people don't know, what either like the greatest hurdle that you had to overcome, obviously getting the job, or just in general, or something like this, or like your greatest successes, what would it be? Because this is when young women and young men, I have a former intern who's now on air in LA. Yeah. So it's not, I don't only mentor women. Like, what would you show as an example that can give them hope? Maybe.
Oh man.
I love the plan B.
That's a great question. You know what? Actually, I'll answer it this way. Because it's still a work in progress. What I tell young aspiring broadcasters is like belief in yourself. And it's sometimes in this industry, it's so hard to find that because of the noise of social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the competition. And, you know, there's always, you know, going to be somebody else who wants your role. Like, I mean, you and I can relate on this. We're both not in our 20s and, you know, like anymore, right? Like, but believing that you deserve to be here and that you deserve to be viewed as an equal, as you know, and it's hard to do that. I think at least it was very hard for me, especially early on in this role because of taking over for Jamie. You know, for my first couple of years here, I just tried so hard to, you know, I guess like fill her shoes.
To be Jamie.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah,
Audra.
right. And I, you know, if I could go back and do things differently, that is what I would do differently. I put so much pressure on myself because I saw all of the social media posts like, we love Jamie. Why is she gone? You know, and the reality is she left because she got an amazing opportunity. It's not like I got her fired, right?
Right,
You know?
right.
And so I just put an insane amount of pressure on myself where it made me struggle. My first year, for sure. I look back on some of my earlier broadcasts and I was like, woof, that was not good. But I didn't allow myself to grow in that role probably at the rate that I could have because of trying so hard to be somebody that I wasn't. And this is a true story. The turning point for me was I was up for a job at MSG in New York. So big job, it was New York, right? And I didn't really want it because I wanted to stay in Minnesota. I was so happy here. But my agent was like, you should go and audition because you never know what's going to happen, you know.
That's how I got to Minnesota.
Yeah, like you never know.
You love it, but just you
don't know for sure that you're going to
skills
get a contract extension. Right, all that. So I went on the audition and I just kind of told myself instead of like stressing about it because I knew I didn't really want the job, like just go and have fun with the audition and just like literally just have fun, be yourself and have a good time. Don't stress about it. And I did. And it was funny. Like I had such a good time doing the show. I mean, they basically gave me like a fake show and sat there and did the show with one of their analysts and we had fun. I didn't even know the guy, right? It was just, and they offered me the job the next day. My agent told me that they were like, the guy was like, don't even let her get on the plane. Like we want her, whatever. So they offered me the job and, I turned it down, but because I wanted to stay here, you know, that job was just going to be doing hockey.
Yeah.
It was with the New Jersey Devils. And so I was like, well, I won't have baseball anymore. And I'm not a huge fan of the big cities, you know, and I just freaking love Minnesota. So I turned that job down and that's a great job.
Yeah.
But what I took away from that was like, holy hell, I got offered a job because I was myself. I
Right.
wasn't even like overly prepared for the job. I just went in and trusted that I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
You know, knew hockey well enough. I mean, it's the Devils. We don't even play the Devils enough for me to
Exactly.
really know, you know, like, yeah, the fact that they offered me the job that quickly, I was like, well, if that isn't like a smack in the face to myself to just go and be myself and stop trying so hard to be Jamie,
Right.
then I don't know what is. And it was literally that season that I came back and I was like, screw this. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be myself. And it made all the difference in the world. I mean, even like my colleagues and stuff were like, you just seem so much more confident. You're like having fun. I was like, yeah, why didn't anybody tell me to do this the last 3 years? Why did it?
I don't think they can tell you. You have to.
Yeah,
do it on
you have
your
to
own.
find it right. Exactly. So like I do tell young aspiring journalists, like believe in yourself. When you get the opportunity, you got the opportunity for a reason, right? Don't try to be somebody you're not. Don't try to fit this mold. Like there's too many people who are trying too hard to fit a mold. Be yourself, stand out for who you are and have confidence. Yes, sometimes as a female in this role, you have to work 10 times harder, right? To prove that you know what you're talking about. I get that a lot. Like people are like, oh, so who tells you what questions to ask post game?
Right.
You know, who writes your show? I'm like, I write my show and I don't have a prompter. So all of it's totally off, you know,
Exactly.
the reactions I get on that where people are like, wait, so you're just saying that yourself? I'm like, yeah, because I know what I'm talking about. Some people are still like so surprised by that. And so, yeah, just have confidence. And so that was to me a turning point, like the value in just believing in yourself. It's not always easy. I know you probably go through it still too. Like you get done with a show sometimes and you're like, that was terrible. And it's hard to sometimes get over that. You just feel like you let yourself down. You let your colleagues down, right? And you're like, that show wasn't that great. You know, and then you have to hear about it from everybody on social media. But Yeah. So like
No,
I said,
have
that's why
no
I say
idea what
like
you're
it's I
talking
know
about. I've never had a bad joke.
that's why I say it's still a work in progress. The whole like believe in yourself and confidence and stuff like that. It's not easy in this role, but once you find it, it certainly makes a difference, and so I don't know. I don't know if that answered your question
No,
at
it's
all, but
perfect.
that was
It's perfect because it's hard to say stuff like have confidence, be yourself.
Mhm.
Well, what does that mean? That's kind of like a Hallmark thing.
right.
So that's the perfect example to show.
And one person can think you are the greatest reporter in the entire world, and the person sitting next to them could think that you're an idiot and they hate listening to you, right? You can't win them all over once you can kind of come to terms
I
with
once
that
had
too.
a news director say, "I love your work. Think you're fantastic. I don't think blondes look good on TV."
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Where do I go with that? I'm like, do you want me to dye my hair dark? He
Yeah.
goes, well, I don't know. I just don't think blondes look good on TV. And I said, well, thank you for your time.
What?
Right? Because I'm not going to change who I am now at this point. Right? This was way back before I even went to, where was it? Milwaukee. It was way back, early in my career. I'm like, what? Ironically, what he didn't know is because when I first started, after I graduated Boston College, my internship, there were so many blonde jokes that I did dye my hair brown. I wasn't even on TV. I was like an intern right behind the scenes. And it was horrible. Yeah. Like I went home, I go, Mom, what do you think? She goes, it's interesting.
I did that too.
Yeah.
I don't think you and I are meant to be brunettes.
Yeah,
I tried it.
It did not work.
It did not work.
I'm like, what? I've always wanted it. And so then after that, I'm like, I'm not going to be anything that I'm not. And again, if a boss like, I don't think blondes are good on TV, I started thinking like, now that I'm older, I didn't even see that red flag. I'm like, would you even want to work for someone that says said that out loud?
Yeah.
Right? So
you're like, thank you for making that type of comment and making me realize that I do not want to work here. If my hair color is going to be a reason I don't get a job, how about like I get a job or I don't get a job based on what I bring to the table and my my talent. And God forbid.
No young women out there, if you're listening, and I've had young women from like the U, if I talk at classes, they always pull you aside. Do I have to get like cosmetic surgery?
No.
Do I have to get a nose job? You do not have to. If you want to do that on your own, whatever you want to do, but no. And she goes, well, isn't it required? Someone told me that so-and-so station made her get her. I'm like, no. And run far away from any place that will make you go under the knife to have a job.
Can you imagine if somebody told me, I mean, and now again, like whatever, I'll be honest with you. I went off on somebody on Facebook the other day because a friend of mine showed me a post that was going around in one of the like Twins fan like Facebook pages about if I had it's a podcast, right? I can say
you can say
breast augmentation. And somebody was speculating about that. And then like somebody responded and said, let's be honest, she's had everything done. And I was just like, you know what?
You don't even know me.
That is not true at all. But like, so I saw this post and I just was like, you know what? I'm going to respond to it, which maybe I shouldn't have. But I told her, I said, not only have I never had that surgery done, like I haven't had everything done at all. I mean, like I will admit, like I get my hair done, I get a spray tan, fine. My nails are fake, my eyelashes are fake and stuff like that, but nothing else about me is fake. And you know what? If it was, who cares?
Who cares?
I don't care. I don't look at women and be like, oh man, she had a breast lift or a boob job or whatever and judge them. Do whatever makes you feel comfortable, but you're going to speculate about me because I have curves. And that's the other thing that took me a long time to like finally not feel like I have to be a size 4. I'm not. I never have been. I've been curvy. I finally like stopped like feeling like I have to starve myself. And unfortunately, there was a whole Reddit thread about if I was pregnant or not. And I was like, I'm not. I like cheeseburgers. And you know what? I'm going to eat them now instead of feeling like I have to force myself to be, again, like be a size 4. I'm not. Right. I'm naturally curvy and thick. Sorry. Like, and just because I am, like, you're going to speculate if I'm pregnant. I mean, this was going on for weeks. People were commenting like, oh, well, she looks skinnier today. Nope. There's a belly. That's definitely a baby bump. And I'm like, are you kidding? Oh, yeah.
I had an older one, and it's not only young people on Twitter. There was an older woman that sent me an email. And she said, and this was a couple of years ago, probably about 5 years ago, and said, you know, you just have gained weight. And it's just is not okay. And so, and she's like, I know because I'm of like certain age or whatever she was, and the boys won't like you. And so I responded, thank you for your message. Like I always answer, thank you for your message. I broke my back twice and I'm in the process of healing again. I'm an athlete and the camera does add 10 pounds.
It does.
So, and I don't live my life just so guys will like what I look like on TV. I'm more concerned with healing my body first.
Yeah.
And she did write back, oh, my dear child, I'm so sorry. Right. But this is an older woman. So people, they don't know what comes out of their mouths.
I know. I want to be like, well, I'm sorry. Right. I'm almost 40. My metabolism isn't like it was when I was younger. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Like, and people don't, again, I don't go to your job, Mr. Whatever you do for a living and say, God, you know what? You kind of put on some pounds. You should probably like, sometimes people drive me crazy. Right. But you know what? Again, if you're out there and you're an aspiring journalist, you're never going to make everybody happy. There's going to be people who are going to say like, I mean, I gained weight during COVID. Who didn't? Right. And if you are going to speculate that I'm pregnant because during COVID, I ate a lot of cheeseburgers and I drank beer, but now you're going to critique my job and my job performance. And it's like
down, they can't even see.
You'd be surprised.
So there years ago, and I'll end with this. I was sitting on, this is a media person and I don't even know his name. And he worked at some small radio station. And I sat down next to him and John Krasinski, love him, was sitting behind me. And he looks at me, goes, hi, nice to meet you. And I shook his hand, the guy next to me, and he goes, wow, you're not fat. You look great. And I go, excuse me? Like that was the first thing he said to me. He goes, you're not fat. You look great. And I said, oh, I look, and I tried to say a different word. Oh, I look hot? And he goes, no, fat. And he says, on TV, you look fat.
Oh my God.
But you're not. You're athletic and you're thin. Wow. And I just went, well, at least that's good. And I turn around, John Krasinski's like, does like the head exploding thing or what, something like, are you kidding? This was years ago.
Happen?
He goes, I go, I've never had that happen to me before, but I'm glad that I look great in real life.
Oh my God. Right? Like, why does that come out of people's mouths?
Wow, you look good. You're like thin, tall and thin. And I was like, thanks.
Mark and I talk about that a lot. He came into work the other day. He's like, do you think people are going to notice that I'm wearing the same outfit that I did like a week ago? And I was like, no. I was like, now, God forbid that I did, because people constantly comment about what I'm wearing, or God forbid I wear blue when we're playing Toronto. And I'm like, I promise you, my wardrobe selection has no effect on this game or who I'm choosing or rooting for. Like, I just didn't have clean clothes, and this dress fits right now, and it's clean. But that's the downside of being a woman, unfortunately, in this industry, is like, not only do you have to worry about what you say and how you say it and all that, but God forbid you wear something that somebody, I'm sure you go like, I'll put on an outfit sometimes and it looks great. And then you get on camera and it looks totally different. And you're like, all right,
like, that didn't work.
Yeah.
I would say this last injury that I had this summer, I was on crutches for it was over 2 months. And I'm thinking, it's the first time in my career. And I thought, well, I have not ran around the lake, gone a hot yoga. I haven't done anything. But for over 2 months, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because once I can, I'll be back.
Yeah.
I know I'm just in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Like I would say the first time, if anything ever happened when I've had other injuries, like you wonder like, oh my God, I can't eat. I can't eat for a week because I haven't gone to whatever classes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But thank you.
No, thank you, Dawn. And I want to say something to you. I think you're spectacular. I remember when I first met you, when I first moved here, you were always very welcoming to me. And I've enjoyed when we've been on panels together talking about being a woman in this industry. You mentioned like Laura saying, like she's against like girl on girl crime. Like you are such an advocate and like such a great role model, and I don't know, it's just awesome to have gotten to know you, and I really appreciate that you're supportive of every female in this industry too, and you do a spectacular job too, and your crap, so you're just a great example of being a kick-ass woman in this industry. So
thank you.
I appreciate you having me on here, because you are thebomb.com.
This is one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this podcast, to open not only for women, but to shine a light on the great women that are not only in our own market elsewhere, but definitely here in Minnesota. So,
well, we've got some good ones, and you are definitely at the top of the list. So thank you.
Right
for
back
having
at you, my friend. All right. Well, Audra Martin, if you don't know and you haven't watched, tune in Bally Sports North. Now she's owning and rocking the wild airwaves. And then when the Twins are back, and who knows, they might throw her in on whatever. I've seen you pop up.
Sign me up. I'm up for whatever.
All right. Audra Martin, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.